Hello and welcome to another episode of Walk the Talk Show with Waylon Lewis, where we walk our talk, we don't just talk the talk. So today, as always, I'd like to thank our Eco B Corp 1% for the Planet sponsor, Colleen with a K, Canteen with a K. They are offering all Elephant listeners, readers, viewers 30% off, which is more than I think they offer anywhere. And it's use code ELE as in elephant, ELE30, the number 30, ELE30 at cleancanteen.com. Clean Canteen is with a K or two. And it's we also, on our site, elephantjournal.com/shop, we have a Clean Canteen partnership mug we did with them with the Mindful Life Manifesto, which I love. And what is the Clean Canteen good for? It's insulated, so you can use hot, you can use cold. It'll keep it hot or cold. It's got a little Mindful Life Manifesto on it that you can read while you wait for your friend who is late yet again. And that's what we're talking about today, which is the neuroses of being late. I am an expert in being late in the exact sense that someone who is completely neurotic about something is an expert in that neurosis. So I'm an expert in it in that I have a lifelong habit of being late, but I'm not an expert in it in the sense that I have very little willpower or control around my ability to be on time. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this neurosis. A lot of people share this neurosis, so this could be helpful to talk about. And I'm actually going to defend being late in a way. And I also want to talk about it for those of you who are irritated with people who are late because you're kind of type A and you're on time. And it's so easy to criticize people for being late. So it's time to give voice to the voiceless, to those late people who have been criticized their whole life for being late. So if I wrote a little romantic poem and it said, "The clock rules our lives. We should instead live by our breath, live in the present moment, celebrate, carpe diem, smell the flowers." Every one of you would like that on Instagram, share that, like that on Facebook. It would be an easy thing to agree with. That is the exact logic of everyone, at least who I know, and I'll just speak personally, of people who are late, which is if we're biking, in my case, to work to go meet with someone, and we run across the Munchkin Parade, the annual Halloween parade of kids walking around the mall getting candy, and it's just adorable. You just look at it and it's like, you smile for a whole hour. It's just so funny. And, I have friends who are parents who are like harried and enjoying it as well, and they're dressed up. The whole thing is so cute. Or you run into the farmer's market and you're like, oh, I could buy 10 apples before, the winter comes and support local and blah, blah, blah. Or you run into a friend and you haven't seen them for a couple weeks and you're like, oh, Aaron, how have you been? How's the child? How's the wife? How's the work? Oh, I had a concern about this with your work, naturally boulder, blah, blah, blah. That just happened. And we talk about real issues and we set a date for lunch. Or, I'm biking along and the mountains are, covered in mist rising up from the melting snow, and you stop and you appreciate it and you share an Instagram story with your friends who also maybe need to be reminded that nature can be a mind stopper. There's so many, from the late point of view, the whole world is a minefield of opportunities to be late instead of to be on time. So as I'm making this short 10-minute trip from my house with my dog to work to be on time for something, there's 18 different opportunities for me to stop and smell the roses and be late. And is that a bad thing? Let's examine our evidence. So my grandma, years ago, snapped at me. I remember on Pearl Street, and she was someone who I adored and looked up to. She's passed away now. Grandma Carol, and she said, "You know what, Waylon? When you're late, you're stealing time from someone else." And that really stuck with me. It didn't change my behavior, but it really stuck with me. It left a mark. So that's Grandma Carol's point against being late. Let's examine my ex-girlfriend Rose. So her point about being late, I was late for her a couple times when we were first dating. She looked at me in the eyes and she said, "If you're ever late for me again, this will not work." And she just stared at me until I cowered in fear internally. And I was never late for her again, like ever. For the next year and a half, I was suddenly on time. So I know I have the ability to be on time. I'm always on time for my meditation instructor, Frank Berliner, because I really respect him. I wouldn't say I'm always on time, but I'm on time like 98% of the time. And I'm early probably, 50% of the time. So very different behavior. I know I have the ability to be on time. And whenever I'm late, which is 18 times a week, people are generally very understanding, number one. Pretend to be very understanding, number two. Those are mostly like public meetings. I'm late for people I don't know all the time. You'd think that would be super rude. It is. But people are really nice about it and actually almost never guilt trip you or yell at you. The people who yell at you or guilt trip you are your colleagues and your friends. And what I retort immediately to colleagues, as Vanessa knows, is, well, you guys make me late half the time. I'm in 8 meetings a day, and in 7 of those meetings, the meetings go long. So if you want me to be on time for the next thing, you want me to be on time for you need to make sure the meeting before and our own meeting, you get the logic. Everyone is equally part of me as a CEO being on time because everyone loves to keep me late. And I'm part of that being late. I'll blab and I'll listen and I'll talk until the cows come home. So this is kind of getting to my overall point, which is that late people are too present. People all say, "Oh, dogs, they're so inspiring. I wish humans could be more like dogs. Dogs are so present." Yeah, dogs are too present. Dogs are all about smelling the tree and eating their food too quickly, but they're not worried about paying the mortgage. They're not worried about, anything other than what's right in front of their faces. I can tell you, I've been in foreclosure in my house. Redford wasn't stressed out by it. I have, been 8 hours late to see him once in a while, like he's home the whole time. And sure, he's anxious and he wants to get out and he wants to go party around and pee and see dogs and see people. But the second he sees me, he's happy, Like there's this level of he's just present. He doesn't like guilt trip. He doesn't grudge. He's just present. But dogs are too present and late people are too present. So yes, it's a beautiful thing that we stop and we talk to everybody on the way to a meeting instead of being on time. But it's also too much of a good thing can be not so wonderful. So I have notes on my computer, but my computer goes to sleep and makes me late with my notes. So, advice to late people. First of all, we're all lying, duplicitous people. If you're late, you're a con artist, because I have an immense ocean of comfort around being late. If I know I'm biking to see Vanessa and I know she's steaming mad because I'm an hour late. I've probably been an hour and a half late for her before. And I know she's filthy angry. I'm still not weirdly that stressed out by it. I know I'll get yelled at a little bit. I know I'll just apologize. And then I'll know she'll be in a rush to actually get on with whatever's happening and we'll kind of move into that. The only time I'm like, I don't know. It's this weird comfort level. I'm super comfortable apologizing for being late. I'm super comfortable arguing once in a while, which is a surprising tactic if you think apologizing won't work. Once in a while saying, well, all of you make me late. It kind of puts people on their back feet when they're all self-righteous, rightly self-righteous. So, advice to late people. You're all con artists. You're all comfortable with being late, or you know how to retort about being late. So, the genuine advice is, do you actually think late is bad? Because we all think, I feel guilty about being late. I do. I feel sort of guilty. I know people yell at me about it, but I do it anyway. So do I actually think being late is a problem? I think if you got me a little tipsy on vacation in Greece or something, and you said, Waylon, do you really feel bad about being late at all? I would say, no, I don't at all. I'm totally living life off the clock. I'm just kind of going from thing to thing, and I try to kind of aim relatively close to the time. But, you know, this weird thing in my head happens where if I have to be somewhere at 2, I will start getting ready at 1:45. But if you want to be on time, you actually have to leave at 1:45, so you have to start getting ready at 1:30. My brain doesn't work that way. It can work that way, as evidenced by Rose, by Frank Berliner, by whatever else in my life. Dave Rogers has yelled at me many times, my colleague and best friend, about being late, to the point where he's like steaming mad and walks off when he sees me. Like, he can't even talk to me. But I'm still pretty relaxed about being late with him. So when it comes down to it, I don't feel that bad. You may be so irritated and angry at me if you're an on-time kind of type A person right now, but I'm just letting you know the secret world of late people. I think late people, we really have to get in there with ourselves and say, do we actually think this is a bad thing? Because if we do, we need to change our behavior. We need to start getting ready at 1:30 and leave at 1:45. But if we don't actually think it's a bad thing, we need to kind of own that a little bit, not too much, because, you know, you kind of have to be like a closet late person. If you're an open late person, people will hang you in the town square. Like, it is not okay. There is no place in society that says it's actually okay to be late and proud of it. That's insane. So, yeah, there's no parade of late people, partially because no one would show up on time. But, yeah, so I think, you know, really, I'm just trying to say, let me get my notes open, yet again, that my comfort level is in direct relationship to my continuing being late. If I were genuinely uncomfortable being late, I would stop it. But I'm actually comfortable. So I just think in terms of your advice for your whole life, if you say you overeat habitually, which I also do, at some point, you know, I'm 45, you have to be like, do you like eating too much? Because there's no point softly guilt tripping yourself about something your whole life if it's not hurting someone else. If it is hurting someone else, like being late, then maybe you need to change your behavior. So I really have worked on this over the last couple of years. I've worked on myself relatively hard. I know how psychologically I can get myself to be on time, which is I have to go backward. I don't know if normal type A people do this, but for me it's really hard to do this mentally. If I'm going to be on time somewhere, at 2 o'clock, I have to say, okay, I need 10, 12 minutes to get there, maybe 15 if something comes up, and then maybe 18 if I want to be relaxed about it, because even if something comes up, it probably would last more than 3 minutes, like running into Aaron. And then I have to get ready, which is packing my bag and getting Redford's leash and getting Redford's collar and getting my phone and getting my, shoes on and my coat and my this and that, and making sure I have poopy bags and putting my bag on my bike and getting my bike out and locking up. Oh, weird. I don't even know what that is. My notifications are off. So, it's a whole mental puzzle that I have to erect every time if I'm going to be on time. And it's hard for me. I think it's just a habit. I have a very weak left arm. If my left arm is my ability to be on time, I need to exercise that left arm deliberately every single time if I want to be on time. So if you want to be late, if you are a late person, you want to be on time, that's how what works for me is I have to go backward. Again, the kind of people who are always on time or early are foreign. They're like very foreign people to me. So I don't know. Is that how you do it? You walk it backward?
Yeah.
You do that every time?
Every time.
So I guess you just have to do it. It's math.
It's map. It's
a
timeline map sort of thing in my head. Every time.
You say 2 o'clock, so I need 1:45, so I really need one.
I look up how long it takes
40,
to get somewhere
right.
from the distance.
Yeah, I don't do it.
I know how long I take to get ready. Yeah.
I just kind of start thinking about it when the pressure of the actual hour is so close. It's like burning burning me, sunburning me. When I start getting sunburnt by the pressure of 2 o'clock, which is usually about 1:50, I'm already late. Like often I'll be like, okay, I have to shower, I have to get dressed, I have to pack, I have to get my dog, I have to bike, and all that would really take probably 40 minutes safely, but I start thinking about it at 10 of. And then everything's rushing. So that's my only logic, I would say, to late people, including myself, is the quality of rushing is kind of frenetic and stressful and a little aggressive. Like if Redford's trying to smell a tree for 10 seconds, it's like, feels like the longest 10 seconds of my life. I'm like, come on, we gotta go. And the only times I ever lose my temper, I notice, is when I feel like I'm not being supported as part of a team, and Redford's part of my team. And if I'm like holding groceries and holding the bike and it's icy and I'm trying to get it up the thing, and like he's like trying to sniff a tree at the same time, which is pulling me over with all the groceries, then I get mad. If there's not that pressure of time, I go into that mentally, as David said, if you've slept, if you're on time, if you've exercised, if you've eaten, you go into every tough situation in your life completely relaxed, as opposed to kind of already on edge, like over-caffeinated, late, underslept, stressed out by time, stressed out by people gonna be yelling at you. So that's the logic. If you're trying to talk with a late person out there, know that they're kind of drunk on their own lateness. They don't actually care that much, usually, I think. But that they do care about the quality of that rushing and the quality of losing their ability to handle challenge. So that's where I'll leave off. So that is In Defense of Being Late, a subject that probably has never been covered by a late person ever, because we're kind of usually as quiet about our late habit as possible. Thank you so much. Let's end with a bow. A bow of thanks to you for listening, for watching. Obviously, we wouldn't do this if many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of you are watching on IGTV or listening on our new podcast. So thank you so much. And thank you to Clean Canteen. Again, use ELE30 at cleancanteen.com. Every time you support them, using that code, you're supporting us. I just bowed to you in that moment of silence. Thank you.